Hey, what's up? It's Steve with the Range Minded Podcast with another tactical tip. Today, we're going to start a bar fight. That's right, we're going to talk about self-defense calibers. This should be a good one. All right, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about self-defense calibers. What caliber is best for you in your self-defense protection? Boy, there's been a lot of arguments started with this kind of conversation, and everybody seems to have a perfect opinion on what is the right and wrong caliber. But is there really a difference? And would it make a difference in the long term? Well, let's find out, shall we? Probably by far the most prevalent caliber in self-defense world would be a 9mm. This is what this is. This is I think it's a Ranger T actually, 9mm. 9 has been around for a very long time. Now, some of the old boys will tell you that 9 is completely bulimic and won't stop a bad guy because there is no knockdown power. I disagree. 9 has come a long ways over the last 50 years, 60 years. 9's been around a long time. It's been around since World War II, by the way, but maybe longer. I don't know. I'm not a historian. The 9mm is probably the most prevalent caliber out there as far as self-defense is concerned. And there's a lot of people that choose this for a reason. Mostly it's capacity of magazine, right? You're able to stack a lot more ammo, and especially if it's a double stack magazine. So like if you're carrying a Glock 17, for example, you're gonna have 17 rounds inside that magazine. Some of the new SIGs and these smaller carry guns are carrying 15 to 20 round magazines nowadays. So that gives you a lot of firepower packed into one magazine. Also, the nice thing about running a semi-auto is reload time is much, much quicker. So in my opinion, 9 is a very valuable option for self-defense carry. And it's one that honestly I use. That's what I consider. I carry 9mm every day. So there's that option there. Some of the downsides that some people are saying with 9mm is, well, they're just not going to have enough power to stop somebody, especially if it's a wintertime and they're wearing a heavy jacket or whatever. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. There's a lot of videos and science now backing the projectiles that are coming out. I think 9mm is a very safe option. The other nice thing about 9mm is that recoil impulse is going to be a little bit more subtle, allowing more people to carry, different size people to carry 9 as a choice in the defensive carry ammo. So there's that. Normally, when you start arguing 9mm, the 45 caliber guys jump out and say, well, it's God's caliber. Oh, it's huge. 2 world wars, baby. Now, is 45 an option? Yes, absolutely. 45 is a big, heavy, slow round, and it does cause a lot of damage once it impacts, especially in hollow points. We should probably say, too, that whenever you're carrying defensive ammo, always choose a good hollow point. It's like I said, it's a big, heavy, slow round, so you're getting a lot of mass on target in one shot. There's actually a lot of research that's gone into those, like the impacts between 9 and 45, and it's not as drastic as what people actually make it sound it. Now, do I want to get hit with a 45? Obviously, no. That would be a terrible option. But there's that. There's a lot of weight in that bullet coming down range. Now, the downside with 45, usually mag capacity is extremely limited. Most people, when they consider a 45 auto, they're thinking of like a 1911, which means you're carrying 7 to maybe 9 rounds in your magazine, so you're limited to round capacity. Also, because it's a heavier round, you're going to get more recoil out of that cartridge, meaning it's harder to get your follow-up shots on. Not saying it's impossible. Training, you can do all sorts of things. But because the recoil impulse might be bigger than a 9mm, then you're starting to reduce your effectiveness downrange because you're trying to fight that recoil. And, I'm sure people are going to argue with me on that one. But is it a good option? Sure. Is it the best option? I don't know. It's not my gunfight. It's up to you. Anyway, there's 45. It's a big round. So is there an option between 9 and 45? Yeah, of course there is. What I got here is the Smith & Wesson 40. Okay, it's 40 cal. And this is a critical duty, I think. Anyway, 40. That was the very first cartridge I ever bought for my self-defense, was a Springfield in 40, hence the 40 caliber I got here. Is 40 a good option? Yeah, yes and no. Now, 40 doesn't really sit right in the middle between 9 and 45 caliber. There's a little bit difference. 40 has a lot more pressure inside that cartridge, so there's a lot of felt recoil inside. Is 40 a good defense caliber? Yeah, I think it is a good defense caliber because there's so much speed and pressure coming out of that when it impacts, and it does. But again, 40 has kind of lost its favor in the shooting world. Less and less people are buying 40s. I don't know if ammunition manufacturers are producing less 40. I don't think so. I think it's still out there. But it isn't really a cheap round to shoot. In fact, any of these defensive ammo, when it comes to defensive cartridges themselves, you got to consider it's more money to shoot too. It's not like plinking ammo. This is different kind of ammo. So all defensive ammo is more expensive. But 40 tends to be a bit more snappy, so managing that recoil is a little bit harder. Even I feel like it's even more than a 45. But again, that's just me. Is 40 a good option for caliber for concealed carry or defensive use? Yes, if that's what you want, I guess. Downside is not a lot. You get about the same capacity as like a 9mm, so you're carrying more than a 45, maybe a little less than a 9mm. But again, that recoil is going to be a little bit more snappy in your hands, and ammunition availability might be a little bit tougher. All right, let's jump down below 9mm. So 380 is often thought as the most worthless cartridge ever. And for a long time, I actually felt the same way. Would I use a 380 to carry? Yeah, I do. I actually do have a 380 that I carry. It's a nice secondary carry. Now, there are some downsides to 380 because it's a lot lighter cartridge. Let's see if you can... I'll hold these up eventually. There you go. So it's a smaller cartridge. It's basically the same diameter as a 9mm, basically. But it's going to be moving a little slower. It's a lighter projectile. So the lighter projectiles aren't going to penetrate as deep in theory as something that's going to be a little bit heavier. Now you got to consider, again, if it's cold outside and there's lots of layers of clothing, it may not do the trick. But I don't know anybody that's willing to get shot with anything just to try it. So it might be right for you. It might be right. Recoil tends to be a little bit less on the 380s, but the downside is most guns in 380 are a lot smaller, and smaller guns are a little bit different to handle than something that's a bigger frame. Maybe that recoil impulse will be more felt because the guns are lighter, if that makes sense. Think of like a high school science, right? The lighter the mass of the gun, the more recoil we're going to have to absorb. So just consider that with 380. There are a lot of really good guns out there in 380. There's actually a lot of really good ammo out there now in 380 that I still think is a viable option for self-defense, but maybe not so much in the cold winter areas where people are wearing lots of layers of clothes. Now let's jump up on the spectrum a little bit. Years and years ago, the FBI decided they wanted something to stop a lot of things, and they came up with this. This is a 10mm. And I'll hold all these up. We'll take some pictures of these later. So in this 10mm, that is a beefy cartridge. This is actually a hard cast lead bullet. This is something I use when I'm out in the woods carrying around. 10mm is a very effective cartridge for a lot of different things. It's really expensive as far as coming to like self-defense ammo, as far as like the two-legged predators. 10 is not cheap. 10 is an expensive cartridge. There are a lot of really good projectiles in 10mm that if you did choose to use that as a defensive cartridge, I think you would probably be successful in defending yourself with a lot of ways. Most people use a 10mm for like backpack guns or secondary for hunting, that kind of thing. 10 in a good hard cast bullet like this one, for example, has a lot of penetration and can save your life against some of the big, ugly four-legged predators. There's actually a lot of people that use 10mm to hunt large game. If you want to watch some cool videos, look up a guy named Razor Dobbs. He takes his 10mm Dan Wesson hunting all over the place, and it's effective. It's actually pretty interesting. 10 mil is a cool cartridge. In fact, the 40 caliber that I showed, one of the first ones there, the 10mm is actually the parent case of that 40. The FBI realized that 10 was way too powerful. They said, hey, let's scale that back a little bit. Our agents are having a hard time. So they came up with the 40, which didn't really do what they thought it would do, and they still had struggles. And then they just ended up going back to, I believe, 9mm now. So anyway, is 10 a viable option? Yeah, it could be. But just remember, you're going to spend a lot more money on ammo. The guns are a lot heavier. You're going to feel that recoil normally a lot more because it is a spicy cartridge. But it is cool. All right, well, let's say that you don't want to go the semi-auto route, because pretty much all those cartridges we just talked about are for semi-automatic handguns. Can you get a revolver that shoots a 45 ACP or a 9mm or a 10mm? Yeah, there are actually guns out there designed to use moon clips, meaning They hold the cartridges for the semi-autos a different way inside the cylinder, so you can use that ammo in a revolver. Those are out there, and they're actually a pretty cool option if you want to go that way. But when it comes to revolvers, most people choose 2 different cartridges. I think this one is this is a 38 special. I had to look. I don't know why. So this is just a lead cast bullet. This is nothing special. I don't have any self-defense ammo in 38 special. I do own a Smith & Wesson in 38. That is a great cartridge. It's been around a really, really long time. 38 has been around for a very, very long time. So there's a lot of data behind people using it in a defensive situation. So yeah, can it be used? Yes, most definitely can be used in a self-defense situation. When it comes to revolvers, and we've talked about this before, I believe, or we will talk about it at some point. When it comes to choosing a revolver, there's different aspects of use and different kind of things you overcome with a revolver. We'll get into those later. Normally in a revolver, like I say, most people will choose a 38 special. Sometimes because of the design of the revolver, you're losing a lot of pressure between the cylinder gap and the shortness of the barrel. You may not get the penetration that you need in the round, but again, I think there's actually a lot of data out there that supports that the 38 special has been used a lot in self-defense successfully, so that's an option. Now, if you want to get a little bit spicier on the revolver side, there's the 357 Magnum, and that's what this guy is here with a good soft core bullet. I used to have a Ruger LCR in 357 mag, light revolver, a lot of pressure in the cartridge. 357 is a beefy little cartridge in a lightweight revolver. It was pretty much uncomfortable to shoot, but it was still kind of fun because, it's a lot of recoil you got to deal with. Again, there's probably a lot of historical data out there showing that 357 Magnum is a viable self-defense option. But again, if we're talking barrel length and cylinder gap and that kind of thing, you might be losing some of the effectiveness that you could get out of a semi-auto compared to a 357 Magnum. But again, I think there's probably a lot of historical data that will prove me wrong on that one. Is it a good option for self-defense? Yeah, probably is. But you're going to have to deal with more recoil and less rounds, especially when we're talking about revolvers between the 38 and 357. You're going to have maybe 5 rounds, and you're going to take more time to reload compared to a semi-auto where you can just reload the magazine and top off again really quick. Now, some things I would probably avoid using as self-defense carry would be something like a 22 long rifle. Now, again, I don't know anybody that would be willing to get shot with a 22. I don't want to get shot with a 22. But it may not have the desired outcome, especially in a life-saving situation. Maybe it will. I don't know. It's not my gunfight. I don't know. But most people steer away from 22 as a self-defense cartridge. Now, I just mentioned 22 Magnum, which I don't have a cartridge in front of me. There's a lot more pressure in 22 mag, and that could be a viable option. Again, I don't know anybody that wants to get shot. I know there's probably some historical data showing that 22 calibers have been used in self-defense successfully. And so, take that for what it's worth. Personally, I probably wouldn't choose a 22. I would not go any lower personally than the 380. But almost always do I carry a 9mm. That is my defensive round of choice. All these calibers are only good if you carry them and choose to deploy them if necessary. You could have the biggest gun in the world, and if it's your self-defense gun, that's great, but if it's in your safe, it's not going to do you any good. The most effective firearms defense cartridge you have is the one that you have on you to deploy. So no matter what you choose, whether it be 22 to 357 Magnum or beyond, carry it, because that is going to be the best self-defense caliber for you when the time comes. I don't want to get into the minutia of knockdown power or anything like that. I think that's kind of a waste of an argument. The most effective life-saving tool you have is the one that you have on you to deploy. So that is my take. Anyways, what do you guys think? Did I miss something? Did I ramble on about something I should have? Whatever, let me know in the comments, and we'll see you on the next one.